Welcome, dear students. Today, the topics which we are going to discuss are for each loop construct, advantages and disadvantages of arrays, dynamic arrays that is vector, and Java input output. So, let us begin with the discussion of these topics. We are continuing with the first unit and we are at the end of the first unit. The first topic of today's discussion is for each loop construct. So let us begin with the discussion of the first topic, that is for each loop construct. Now in Java, for each loop construct it is introduced in J2SE 5.0, and why it is introduced? It makes it easier and convenient to iterate through the elements of array and any other collection. We have already familiar with the for loop. You have already studied it in C as well as in C++. For loop is also given in the Java. We have already studied the example of for loop in arrays. We can also make use of for each loop for accessing the array elements or for iterating over the collection. So in for each loop, we can visit each and every element of the array. Like in for loop, we can give the condition. That condition is not there in for each loop. What is the syntax of for loop? For, let's say example, for I assigns to 0, I less than 10 and I plus plus. In this, I is the temporary variable which is initialized to 0. Then I less than 10, this is the condition. And third value, that is increment or iteration of the loop. For that, what value of I is updated, that is I plus plus, it is increased by 1. Now in this for loop we are giving the condition. Here in for each loop the condition is not there. You have to compulsory visit each and every element of the array. So what is the syntax of for loop? For each loop, CL. For type variable colon then array, and this is the array on which this iteration is to be applied, or this for each loop is to be applied, and these are the statement using this variable, that is var. So this is the variable which is used in for only. This is the temporary variable for this for loop. This is the array which we have already declared in the program, and these are the statements which are to be applied over this variable var. So this for loop, for each loop starts with the keyword for, like normal for loop, and this for each loop is used to iterate over an array or collection class. That means whenever you want to iterate over the complete array or complete collection, then we can use this for each loop. And if you are observing the syntax carefully, like for loop, there is no condition statement here. Here just there is a variable and array. We are not giving any condition in for loop itself. We can give the conditions, then increment, decrement, whatever we want to give in here in statements, and we can do it or we can apply it on the var, this variable. But in for loop, in this bracket, we cannot apply any condition or any increment or decrement. So this is the syntax. Let us see the example of for each loop construct. This is the example of for each loop construct. Now in this example, there is a class for each example. Inside the class there is a main function, and inside the main function we have declared one integer array. And these are the values in the array: 125, 132, 95, 116 and 110. Now, how many values are there? There are 5 values. So this array size is 5. This is the one variable which stores the return value of this user defined function. What is the name of user defined function? Maximum, and it is taking array as input. So whenever this function is called, control will go here and function execution will start. Here in function, max is one temporary variable which is storing the first value of the array, that is here 125. Then control will go to for each loop. Now in for each loop, for int num is the temporary variable which is used inside the for loop, and numbers is the array which is passed to the function. Inside this for loop we have applied the condition, but in the for statement there is no condition. So inside the for loop, what is the condition? If num greater than max, then max is equal to num. So value of this num is compared with max variable, and every time whenever value of num is greater than max, then max is assigned to num. So this is, this is the logic for finding the maximum of number. So every time value of this num variable is compared with the max. So initially max is 125. 125 is compared with num. So what is the value of num? Initially num will have the first value, that is again 125. So 125 is compared with 125. The condition will fail because here greater sign is given. Again for will be incremented. So for will go to value 132. That means this num will store the value 132. So here 132 and max has value 125. So 132 is greater than 125. So here max will have value, yes, 132, because 132 is greater than 125. So max have now value 132. Now again num will store the next value, that is 95. So 95 and 132, max has value 132. So 95 greater than 132, loop failed, or condition failed, because 132 is greater and not 95, and num is currently having value 95. So condition is not true, hence loop will be incremented and num will store the value 116. So 116 and 132, these are compared. Again value will be false. Then num will store value 110. So num will store value 110 and max has value 132. Comparison will be done. Max is greater, this condition will be false. So max have, at the end max have value 132. So this value is returned from this function, and that will be stored into this highest underscore marks variable. And here if you see this array, here 132 is the maximum value which we got into this variable highest marks, and that will be printed here. So we can use the for each loop construct for finding the maximum of some values from the array. So what is the use of this for each loop construct? Whenever you want to do it, whenever you want to iterate over the array or collection, then you can use this for each loop construct. So I hope you have understood the concept of for each loop construct. The next topic is advantages and limitations of arrays. Now you studied the concept of one-dimensional array as well as multi-dimensional arrays, that is two-dimensional array. The last point in the arrays is advantages and limitations. So what are the advantages? Whenever you declare any array, you can directly jump to any element using the subscript or index. So efficient random access to the members. This is one of the advantage of arrays. Then fast access to elements. You can fastly access the elements of the array, and whenever you want to store the fixed number of elements, then arrays are more appropriate. Say for example, you want to store 10 elements, 20 elements, 15 elements. If you know the size or number of elements in advance, then you can make use of array more efficiently. There are certain limitations also. What are the limitations? Array elements cannot be inserted or deleted. That means, like in linked list in DS, you have already studied the concept of linked list. If you are creating the linked list data structure and you want to insert any element, you can insert the element, you can delete the element from any position. In array, that is not possible. That dynamic functionality is not possible because size of array remains fixed and dynamic creation is not possible, and it allows only homogeneous elements in the array. Suppose you have declared the array of say 5 elements and you want to insert the element at third position. If you have declared the array of 5 elements, so what are the subscripts or what are the indexes? 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4. Now suppose you want to insert the element at second position, that means third element. You want to insert the element at second position, that is third element. But at the time of creation, if you have given the size of array as say 5 and you want to insert one more element into the array at say for example third position, then it is not possible because you have given the size of array as 5. And if you are trying to insert one element into the array at third position, then that will be out of bounds or that will be out of the index, and at that point the array index out of bound exception will be raised. Hence the insertion and deletion dynamically into the array, it is not possible. For that you have to change the size of the array, and then you can add the element, you can delete the element. But again here, if you want to insert the element at third position, and if at the third position already element is there, then that element will be overwritten. So elements cannot be inserted or deleted, and the size of array remains fixed. Dynamic creation is not possible. For dynamic array, there is one more new concept that we are going to see on the next slide, that is vectors. And very big limitation of the array is what? It allows the storage of homogeneous element. That means it stores the values of same type or one data type only. You cannot store the values of multiple data types. The next concept, as I said, dynamic arrays, that is vector. So arrays has some limitations. For that, to overcome those limitations, there is a concept of arrays, dynamic arrays, that is vector, which is introduced here. So arrays are static in nature. That means once you create the arrays, the size remains fixed. And vector is the dynamic array. That means what? It implements the growable array of objects. It can grow and shrink dynamically. Like an array, it contains the components that cannot be that can be accessed using integer index. Like in array, we have subscript or index for accessing the elements. Same way, here in vectors also we can make use of integer index. for accessing the components which are stored into the vector. Size of vector can grow or shrink as needed to accommodate adding and removing after atoms after vector has been created. What does this mean? Once you create the vector, you can add the number of element or you can remove the elements from the array dynamically, because this vector array has some built-in function. It is a part of the collection, Java collection, under the package java.util, and this vector class has some functions. Using those functions, you can add the elements or you can remove the elements dynamically after creation of the vector. So vector is more flexible than simple arrays. Vectors are dynamic, and we are going to study the concept of vector in detail whenever we'll start with the topic collections. So under collection there are number of classes and vector is one of them. We are going to study this vector with its functions in detail later on in the unit collections. So this is just the introduction of the vector. If you compare the vector and arrays, simple arrays, vector array and simple arrays, arrays are static in nature and vectors are dynamic, and uh, vector size can grow or shrink, or vector can grow or shrink as per the need. That is not possible in the arrays. And vector and arrays, both elements can be accessed using the integer index. Now homework to you is, you have to find out the difference between vectors and arrays, and also what are the advantages and disadvantages of vector that you have to find out. We have already studied the advantages and disadvantages of arrays. Now you have to work out on advantages and disadvantages of vector and what is the difference between vector and arrays. And on this topic will have discussion in the our Google Meet. The next topic is Java input output. Whenever you are writing any Java program, in that program you can store the values into the variables. Now program can take values from the user using number of ways, and those ways are given in this figure. So there are multiple ways to give input values to the program. And what are those multiple ways? You can make use of the command line arguments. Then you can read the values from the console. You can read the values from GUI components. Then from the file and from the database. So these are the different ways for giving input values into the program. So you can read values from the database. Values are already there into the database, and your program can read values from the database. All values are already there into the file. You can write the code for reading values from the file, or we can pass the command line arguments to the program during the program execution. Or what is another way? We can make use of the console and pass values from the console, and those values can be read into the program. Then we can make use of the GUI components, like we are filling an examination form, and in that examination form we are entering our personal details into the GUI components like text box, radio button. So we are going to study these topics or these GUI components later on. You can just remember, here we can make use of GUI components for giving input into the program. So these are the different ways for giving values, input values into the program. So Java input output, it is used to process the input and produce the output. So Java input is taken using these ways, and there is a concept of stream to make IO operation fast. Java.io, this is one of the packages. It contains all the classes required for input and output operation. Java.io, this is the package. It contains all the classes required for input and output operations. And we can perform the file handling using Java.io API, application programming interface. So in Java.io API, for file handling, certain operations are given. We can make use of those operations for file handling. Now, definition of the stream. What is a stream? It is a sequence of data. So in Java, if we are saying the stream, it is composed of bytes. So we can say sequence of bytes, that is a stream. There are three streams created automatically for us. What are those streams? System.out, system.in, and system.err, that is error. So system.out is the standard output stream, system.in is the standard input stream, and system.err, this is the standard error stream. So output stream, it is used for handling the output, input stream used for handling the input, and ERR, this is used for handling the errors. Whenever we want to write data to the destination, then we are making use of output stream, and that destination can be a file, an array, or any other peripheral device or socket. And if you want to read the data from the source, then we can make use of the input stream. And that input stream, in the input stream, the source can be the file, array, or peripheral device, or any socket. So we can read data from the file or from array or any device or any socket. In output stream, we can write data to file or array or peripheral device or any socket. In Java.io, these are some examples. Examples for out and error stream, and example for in stream. How do you use the out stream? System.out.println, and this is the simple message. So here is the out stream. Then system.err.println, this is an error message. So here is the error stream for displaying the error message. This is for displaying the output message. In stream, whenever you want to read the value, then you can make use of the in stream. Here is the system.in. So int I, this is one variable. It's storing the value which is read from the stream, and here is the in stream. Then you can display the value of I here, and it is converted to char, and then it is displayed. So it will display the character which is whose value is stored into this variable I. So these examples are for demonstrating the use of out, error, and in stream. Now we are going to focus on input from command line and input from console. On previous slides, see on this slide, these are the different ways for reading values into the program, and from these different ways we are going to focus on two cases. The first one is command line arguments, and second is reading values from the console. So first one is command line arguments. whenever you want to read values from the command line, how you can do this. So main function accept the array of string as command line arguments. See, if you are watching this syntax, in this syntax there is one array in the main function. Inside the main function as an argument, what is the array name? Args, and data type is string. So this is the array of strings. This array is going to store the arguments which are passed at runtime. Arguments are passed to main function whenever it starts the execution. So this is the syntax of the main function. In main function, this array is going to store the arguments which are passed at the runtime or during the execution of the program, or whenever program starts execution, we are passing the arguments and those arguments are stored in this array. And whenever you execute the program, how those arguments are passed. So Java, this is the tool for execution of the program. Then we are giving the class name, and after class name or program name, this is class name is your program name, and after program name you are giving the arguments. So these arguments can be n number of arguments. Here argument 1, 2 and dot dot is given. So here argument 1 and 2, these values are stored into this array args. So you can pass the values on command line using this syntax. See here, there is an example. Suppose there is a class, class name is here display command line arguments, display CLA. Then this is the main function, this is the arguments array, and here we are displaying the number of arguments and using this length property, and this length property is of this args array. So this is the member of, or this property is member of this main function, because args is passed as a parameter to main. And in for loop we are accessing those arguments and we are displaying the values of those arguments. So for int I ascends to 0, I less than args dot length I plus plus system dot out dot println, and we are displaying the value of each argument. So here total number of arguments are displayed, and here value of each argument is displayed. If you see the output and execution, see here Java, this is the program name. Now here it is assumed that compilation is done successfully and we are doing execution. So Java, this tool is used for execution. Java, this is the class name. Then hello is the first argument, students is the second, and 67 is the third argument. Now recall the note which we discussed on the previous slide. What is the note? All command line arguments are stored as strings. Now here, even though here 67 this value is passed, it is stored as string, and in the output we have displayed those values. So this is argument 0, argument 1 and argument 2. And how many arguments are there? 3. And these are the values. And argument 0, see here 0, that means first argument it is stored at position 0, then second argument is stored at position 1, third argument is stored at position 2. Now if we want to pass arguments of some other type other than string, then explicit conversion should be made. Now there are some conversion functions or conversion methods given in this table. Now whatever arguments we have passed during command line, those arguments we have displayed here. But if you want to access those arguments using for each loop, then you can make use of some conversion functions. So those conversion functions are given here. So conversion of string to other primitive type is needed, and following are the some methods which are useful for this. So what are the methods? Byte dot parse byte, short dot parse short. What is the use of parse byte? It returns the byte equivalent of the string. Then parse short, this returns the short equivalent of the string. Parse int, it returns the integer equivalent of the string. Parse long, it returns it returns the long equivalent of the string. Parse float, it returns the float equivalent of the string. And parse double, it returns the double equivalent of the string. So we can make use of these conversion methods for converting values from string to other primitive data types. So here, whenever we are passing values through command lines, by default those are stored as string. And if you want to do the manipulation of those values, then you need to convert those values, and for that you can make use of these conversion functions. Now the next point is, for reading values from the console, there are two classes provided in the Java. What are those classes? Buffer reader and scanner. So Java API provide these classes for reading values from the console. So we are going to study in detail these classes, how to use buffer reader and how to use scanner for reading values from the console. So buffer reader and scanner, these are the two classes used for reading values from the console. So in the next lecture, we'll have the detailed discussion on the buffer reader and scanner classes for reading values from the console. So we are going to discuss the detailed detailed explanation about the buffer reader, what is the syntax and example of buffer reader, as well as the syntax and example of the scanner. So for today, what topics we discussed? We discussed about the advantages and limitations of the array. Before that, for each loop construct. See what topics we discussed. For each loop construct, advantages and limitations of the arrays. Then vectors, that is dynamic array. We studied this introductory. And then Java input output. In Java input output, different ways of giving input to the program. Then what is the stream? Different types of the stream, and command line arguments and input from the console. So in next lecture we'll have more discussion of the input from the console. So thank you so much.